Yeah, I'll try not to stand in front of the screen. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this technical talk about in-app purchases and how to use the AAP API, quite a mouthful, but the AAP API to code your own modules and to charge customers for services. First of all, just a word about me so that you know that I'm not just some loser that they found in the street. My name is Damien. I've been working at Odoo for 5 years next week. I've been working mostly in R&D. I've been working at upgrades, at support. I've done a few things, met a few people, then back at R&D, and now I'm working there full-time since April again. And you can find me on the Twitter and GitHub. By the way, the code that I will show today is on GitHub, on my profile, but I will give the link will be at the end of the presentation if you want to have a look. So no need to scramble it and write it quite fast. It will be all posted online and on the stream as well. Do I need to stand here? Okay. So what are in-app purchases? I guess by now this is a quite well-known concept and well-known matter. The goal of in-app purchases is to provide service to users of Odoo. That's from their point of view, and from your point of view, it's also to charge for these services. And that's where Odoo comes in, because we act as a middleman between you and the customer, so that you don't need to charge them directly, you don't need to store credit card information, stuff like that, which is really annoying and really painful, and you don't want to go through that because we know, because we had to, so don't. And how does that work exactly? Well, we have a platform, so it's called iap.odoo.com, and on this platform you can register a service. A service will basically have two sides. One of this side will be running on your own machine, on your own server. This is the service side of things. This can be coded in whatever you want. Basically, you just need to receive requests through JSON, with JSON payloads, handle them, send back responses. Of course, what I will show today is coded in Odoo because, well, of course, but it could be done in PHP or Node.js or something more exotic if you want, doesn't matter. The other side of the coin is the client module that has to be installed in the customer database. Obviously, this is an Odoo module. Otherwise, if you don't use Odoo on either side of these modules, at least one of those, then I don't know what you're doing here, but you're doing something wrong. Okay, so now that we have these two sides, Odoo will act as a middleman. So what will happen is that your module on the customer database will contact your service, which is hosted on your server. We'll provide, or with the goal to provide a service. Before providing the service, you will obviously want to know if the customer can pay you for that service. You contact us at aap.odoo.com. You will see how this communication can be made secure and unique. If the customer has enough credit on his account, then you can provide a service, and you will send back this. Yeah, just a sec. All right. Then you will provide the answer to the customer. I'll go through that a little bit, not in extremely long details. It's just let's see how you can register. Yeah, that's okay. That's small, but that's just a screenshot of the AAP platform. On this platform, you go to aap.odoo.com. You can register a service. By the way, we also have a sandbox if you want to play around with the system. The sandbox is quite basic. You just register the service. There is no actual money being involved. You can just play around with the platform. So you register your service, be it on the sandbox or on the actual production server. You need a technical name, you need a description, a logo, stuff that customers will be able to see when they purchase credits for your service. And you can also provide what we call trial credits. So if you want your customer to be able to do sending 5 SMSs before having to pay for real so that they can test the system, you can provide this as well. Once you have done that, you receive a unique key. By the way, no need to try to hijack this one, I invalidated it. You receive a service key, and this is actually how you will be able to communicate securely with the IAP platform. This key will be your identifier, so that every request you send to charge a customer or to block money or to block a charge on the customer while you provide a service, this will use this key. So it's extremely important to keep it, because we display it once and we don't store it for you. We just use it as a signature key, so we don't keep it. You can of course reset it if you lose it, but then you have to update the module on your server, and it's annoying, so make sure to keep that safely somewhere. And once you have this key, you can start creating the packs of credits of services that you will sell. This is again quite simple and quite basic. You just give an amount of credit and an amount of money that matches that amount of credits. You provide a few descriptions so that the customer knows what he's buying, and that's it. Once you keep in mind that we take a 25% commission on these packs. So if you use a third-party provider to do the service, for example, we have some standard module in Odoo that use AAP to send SMS or paper letters, stuff like that. If you do the same, keep in mind that you will have to increase the amount of money you charge so that you will make sure that you get your value for your money, otherwise it will be a costly service to run. On the server side, if you look at the complete communication flow, what will happen is that, okay, your customer wants to use the service, he's going to click a button or drag and drop something somewhere, upload an image. I don't know, it depends on what you want to code. This will send a request from the customer to your server, which is we'll do them in order. So it will send a request usually in JSON or something like this to your server. Then your server will contact us asking, okay, does this customer have enough money to pay for this service, enough credit to pay for this service? We will answer you normally, yes, they do. Then you do something, that's the little step 3, that's not going anywhere. You do something, perhaps you contact someone else, another service, or you... By the way, when we talk of AAP, we often talk about doing something digitally, like sending SMSs or letters. It can also be something that takes time and that is done by a human. So for example, you could sell through AAP something like secretarial services or perhaps accounting analysis with a human doing the actual work behind. When you block money for a transaction, it stays blocked for up to 6 months. Of course, it's not best practice to keep this charge blocked for the customer because it is unavailable for something else if he needs it. But you really have the time to provide services, even if they take time to put into place. So you provide the service, and then when it's ready, you send the answer back to the customer. If it's a service that takes a long time to process, something that is done offline by a human, for example, you will often in the customer database want something that is automated, like a cron job, a scheduled action, we call them in the UI, to go and fetch the result periodically, depending on the urgency of the matter, maybe every 10 minutes or every day or every week, it doesn't matter, depends on your use case. And this result is then given back to the user. In the case where the user doesn't have enough credits on his account, what will happen is that we will simply answer, when you try to charge the account, or the AAP platform will answer, okay, there's not enough credit to do this operation. If you use Odoo modules on both the service and client side, then this communication is rather made easy by some wrappers that we provide and that I will quickly show in the code later on. And basically what happens is that the customer then gets an error, which is it's technically called an insufficient credit error, which is pretty explanatory. And what happens then is that they get a pop-up telling them, okay, you don't have enough credit to do this. Click there to get more. The goal, of course, is for the customer to stay engaged and to make this process rather easy for them. That's also one of the goals of the AAP platform, is that once they have given Odoo their credit information, their credit card information, they can easily recharge their accounts with just 1-2 clicks, and then they can keep using your service without interruption or nearly without interruption. At least that's the main goal. So, talk is cheap. Let's show the code, or at least let's show the feature first. If you've been to other demonstrations of this track of how to develop, how to do front-end, back-end, blah, blah, you know that we like plants. So I've made something that is based on plants as well. I'm basically using a service that is called Plant ID, which is an AI service that can guess what plant it is based on an image. They've been kind enough to provide me with test credentials so that I don't have to pay for this demo, which is nice. And what I've done is really quite simple. I have a service running on my machine that sends these requests to their service. And on the customer side, I just have to upload a picture, submit it to the service, then wait 5-10 seconds for the result. In that case, obviously, that's the kind of system where you should have an automated and regularly scheduled action running every. In this case, I would do it probably every 5 minutes because the customer will want the result quite fast, and the computation will take not a lot of time on the service. So what I do here is simply, okay, I'm gonna make a new request of plant identification. I upload an image. I don't remember which one I used already. I think this one, it doesn't know it yet. The way I coded my system is that I wanted the user to be able to, at any time, know how much credit he has, and also to decide not to make it too automated so that they can still cancel the request if they are unsure. Sorry, I just realized. That's going to be easier to see.
A big shadow. Yeah,
oh, sorry. Okay. So I wanted my module to always tell the customer how much credits they have left, which is quite easy to do in Odoo because we have a lot of customizations for the views that you can use. So I just uploaded my picture here on this request. I'm going to just click submit. The image got uploaded to my service, which is supposed to run somewhere in the cloud. And I fetch my results if my trackpad wants to work. And the plant ID system will even answer me with some confidence percentage. So basically, it's quite sure about its guess. So I'm gonna trust this here that trusted that it's a ficus lirata. If someone wants to contradict me, feel free. And if you've been paying attention, just before clicking send, I had 98 credits. Now I've got 97. And getting credits. So as I said, if the customer doesn't have enough credits, we will raise an error. In this case, I wanted the system to be a little more user-friendly than that, because if you just use the system and then someday you say, oh, okay, I need to put some credit, it's annoying. In this case, I wanted the user to be able to know at every step how much he has and if he should buy more or not. And also, I wanted them, obviously, I want them to buy as many credits as they want or as they need. And I also put a really easy link, and I'll show you in just a few minutes how you can do the same, to send them directly in one click to the portal in the IAP platform for this module, and these are the packs I decided to sell. So for light users and heavy users or something like this. This is all there is to it. My demo is quite simple, as I said. And now let's have a look at the code. Yeah, actually, we'll do the code live. I'm trying to make it visible to everybody, including the back of the room. Is that working? Can you more or less see what's going on here? Okay, good. Thanks. So, as I said before, there are really two parts to this module. The one is running on my cloud, on my server, and this is the one that is running here. So this is the routes that my service will call. I have one to submit the payload with the image, and I have one to later on come and fetch the result. We'll read them in a minute because it's important to have a look at what we use here. And we have the other part, which is stored on which is running on the customer database. In this case, I have just a simple model that will contain the request identification. It will, once it's identified, it will have a full name. I will have the confidence in percentage. This is, I want to keep, since this is asynchronous and I need to go and fetch the result later on, I obviously need to keep a reference to what I uploaded somewhere so that I can get it back later. And just to be on the safe side, because, I don't know, the module might evolve later on if I publish something new, I'm going to store a lot more than what I'm actually going to display to the customer. Of course, depends on what you want to do. Here, I will just store the results. And on my model, I have really not a lot going on. One method to upload this image to the server in JSON, and we will see in a minute how it works, and one method to fetch the results. That's all there is to it. What I do also on the service is that I store the number of the requests I'm going to send to the remote service. Of course, depending on what you do, it might be a lot more complicated. So for example, especially if you provide offline services, the model that is running on your server might be extremely complicated because humans need to interact with it. Here, this is entirely automated, so I just needed some integer fields, nothing more. So let's have a quick look at the client module. We have this model. I'm also storing the image fields, of course. Once the request has been created, the image field has been filled in by the user, and then they click on Submit Request, which is the button that you saw in the UI. There are a few things that I need to do. First, I need to know which customer is going to send this request from the point of view of the service. This you can use using the IAP account model that we include in all databases, even community ones. By the way, this is especially good to target community modules. You should not restrict yourself to people with only enterprise modules, because the bigger the user base, the more revenue and the more impact you can have on the user base. Anywho, that was an aside. Once you access this model, you can ask the get method, which will give you what I've called the user token, or basically a unique identifier for this database. And this is also how the credits system will work. So I get this token. This is, by the way, specific to my service. If you have been paying attention, Plant ID is the technical name I gave to my service when I registered it on the AEP platform. So it's quite important to make sure that everything is coherent. Once I have this token, I can actually send the request to the server. I'm going to do some sanity checks here so that my users will not spend money uselessly. So if there is no picture, then I'm going to stop them right there, otherwise they're going to waste their money. You can do the same on your hand. That's honestly something that you should be careful about. And then we're going to use this method, the Json Rpc Wrapper, which is imported from the EAP module itself. And what it does is that, since we assume that a lot of you, if you develop something, will develop it using Odoo even on the server side, we've made it quite simple to make everything work together. So this wrapper, the Json Rpc Wrapper, I'm sorry about, it seems like I'm talking about Tupac here, but my accent is what it is. This Json Rpc Wrapper will be able to send errors that happen on the service back to the client without you having to do anything about it. So it's really, if you use Odoo, that's really the way to go here. And by the way, you should also always handle the case of the insufficient credit. We'll see how it can be used here. You can raise it by hand. In this case, so what will happen is that I'm going to say, okay, this is my payload. I have the, oh, wait, my editor is, I have my payload with what? Only two things here, the token of the account of the current database and the actual data that I need for the service, which is the image of the plant. Then I need to know where to send it. This is important, especially if you play with a sandbox module. You will need to know if you want to send it to the actual IAP provider or the actual service that you run or the beta version. In my case, I did so I have a local server running, so my default endpoint is on my machine. You should usually avoid using data that is hard-coded in the database to do that, like a system parameter, for example, because it means that if you want to change or to switch, or if you have if you need to change the URL of your service, you will need all your customers to update the module. This is not a good idea. Probably that nothing will work on their end until they click on the update button, which no one does. So make sure that this is included in the code so that if you push an update, especially if you use the cloud like Odoo SH or your server, you just need a simple restart of the server without updating the module, and everything will work. But you should avoid changing that, of course, because that's always a risk for the customer, or you change it nicely. So here I have some fallbacks. I'm still going to check in the system parameters. If there is nothing in the system parameters, then I fall back to this Python constant that I define in my other file. Now that I know where I'm going to send this request, well, I just use the AIP Json Rpc Wrapper, use the endpoint I've defined. I know that the route to submit the request is this route. This route, by the way, and this is a best practice tip that you should always make sure to use. You should version your APIs, because if you decide to do something really nice in 2 years and you need all your current users to update the module, it's not going to go well. So version everything so that if you provide a new service, new apps, new features in the system itself, then you can just add new routes and make sure that all the previous users still keep things going on nicely. So I send this payload to my endpoint. I get a response, which is in JSON. Here, the only thing that really interests me in the response is the request ID that I will need to get back the results later on. And I change my status of this request to send so that the customer knows that it has been sent. On the server, on the service server, I have this, the matching route, of course. It's a JSON route. You should make it public, obviously, because none of your customers will have actually a user account on your system. And by default, the Json RPC use post request. So for the sake of security and to avoid parameters polluting the logs in Nginx or something like this, make sure to only accept post requests. That's nice to have. It will not break if I remove this, but still nice to have. I receive two things in my controller, the user token and the image itself. And then things start to get a little bit more interesting. I'm going to charge my customer something. So I need to add a cost somewhere. In this case, I'm going to make it pay for exactly 1 credit. It could be, by the way, a float value, since I think since a few weeks or months now, we accept partial credits or float credits values. This is the service I will use. It might not be a service, it might be a human anyway. And then we have this context here, this context manager, the charge context manager. What it does is, as soon as it enters the context of the charge, it will contact Odoo, ask is there enough credit or not. If there's not, it will immediately exit with an error, and since in the customer database I'm using the Json Rpc, the insufficient credit error will be forwarded all the way to the customer without having to do anything about it. If there is enough credit, then I can start doing the actual work. In this case, I'm going to send the identification request to my API here with at plant ID. I get my response. I will store it locally because I know that this does not happen all the time immediately. And I return to the user just the ID of the request that they just made. And by the end of the context manager of the charge, so when I switch from this context to this context, if the operation has been successful, the charge will be captured. So when you enter this context, the charge is locked on the customer account, but it's not yet yours. As soon as you leave it without anything crashing, then we consider the transaction to be complete. The credit is captured, and you will get your money at the end of the month. And by the way, if anything bad happens here, like I don't know, you have a loss of connection with the service that you use, or you made a mistake in your code, a typo, and something crashes, as soon as this happens, the charge will be dropped on the server, and the customer will not lose any money because you had a mistake in your server, which is also a way to make sure that there is trust between you and them. So that's sending the request. Then we have the fetching of the result. It's basically the same thing, except that in this case, I don't want my customer to pay. He already paid when he uploaded the image the first time, so I'm just going to do more or less the same thing. Send a JSON request with the account token and the request ID that is stored previously. Send it to the same endpoint, to this route that is called fetch. And I will store whatever the service sends back to me in my database. So in this case, I will update my name with the best guess that the service provided. Same with the confidence. I will store everything in my text field that is hidden from the customer in case I need to develop more features later. And if you look at what I do here, it's pretty stupid. I just contact my service again, ask them for the result, and forward everything to the customer. However, what I haven't done in this module, because it's just a demo, of course, is that you should always make sure to add some layers of security. Here, I've added it as a to-do. You should make sure that when someone requests the result of a certain identification, it's the same person that submitted it. So what I should do here is somewhat store a hash of the account token on the request, and when a new request to get the result arrives, I should make sure that it's the same user. Otherwise, if someone uploads something nasty on my service, some data leaks could happen, that would be ugly. That's it for this demo module. Honestly, it's really small. As you can see, the controller of the service is 50 lines of code, and I'm using black, so there's quite a lot of lines that could get condensed if you're not that into linters. And the model on my customer database is what, 80? Yeah, 80 lines. So you can really code something. If you have a basic idea about a service, you can really prototype this really fast. We have the sandbox. I honestly got this running, I think, in 1 hour tops. And you can easily play with the platform, even if you don't actually plan on doing something, or you just want to discover the API. As I said, all this is available on GitHub. Whoop. Sorry. That's just a reminder of what I showed during the slide, so that the next people will be able to have a look. Basically, just a reminder that on the client side, you just send data. On the service side, you just manage what gets sent to you and communicate with the customer. That's honestly it for this presentation, because the AAP system is quite easy to use. We have documentation on the odoo.com technical documentation. There is an AAP page that explains how to charge, how to capture money. Yeah, by the way, something I forgot to explain, I think. So as I said, we have this context manager here with the charging, but you can also do it manually. So especially if it's a service that will take a long time to process, or that will be given to the user asynchronously. For example, you have a human doing accounting or something. You can then first capture, authorize the amount. So ask us, okay, can you lock 5 credits for this database? They're going to use something here. And then maybe 1 month later say, okay, now we've sent the result, please give us the money. And this is basically what this context manager does, but you can do it also manually. There's a authorize method and a capture method that is documented in the documentation. You can use them. That's exactly the same thing as this context manager does here. So, as I said, I would say a thank you to this Plant ID service, because they gave me access to their API for free. So they're based in the East, in Europe here. Honestly, I forgot the country. I knew it 2 weeks ago, but anyway. Thanks to them, and especially to Susanna, who I spoke by email. And that's it. This is the URL of the GitHub repo with the code I just showed you. And I'm not sure on the timing. I think okay. If you have.
Can you return money?
Hmm?
Can you return money?
No. Once it has been charged. I mean, where is? Wait, I'm looking for my colleague. I forgot my glasses. Ah, oui. Okay. So just for the people watching or in the future or something, the question is, can you refund money? To my knowledge, not through the API, but of course, Odoo support is always there if you need to do something like this. The goal should always be to never charge something that you don't deliver. That's why we allow to separate the authorization and the capture process, so that you can only really charge it once you're sure that the process has been delivered. But the refunding is not included in the API at the moment. Another question?
I have a question. You generated a token while creation of your service. Where did you use this token?
I can show you in the code. So the question is, that's right actually, when I showed you this slide, the creation of the service on the sandbox, I told you, okay, keep this key, because that's how you will communicate with the Odoo service, Odoo AAP server. And this is what I do, whoops, sorry, here. So when I ask for the charging of the money, or the authorization of the transfer of the amount, I have to send quite a few parameters. First, I need to send the environment, because some stuff will get going on in the environment, so we need to send that. I need to send the keys that I got from the AAP platform. I need to send the account of the user that is going to get charged, and the amount of credits that I want to charge. Yes?
Is it possible to set the cost to 0, or do I get an error then? Because this way you can get like not a refund, but like the possibility to don't charge your customer, but improve what happened.
I think so. The question is it possible to set this cost that I'm going to charge to 0? I mean, I can see someone trying to do something weird here, so it's always nice to have some questions that I didn't see coming. Let me check, because I'm wondering if it wasn't, perhaps it was in the documentation. I'm gonna check quickly with you here. Charge. Credit float. I'm honestly not sure. If you want, we can try. I have the system running now, so let's try it immediately. I can just need to restart this. Where is my service? It's here. And all right. It works. I don't know what you would use it for, but it works.
In terms of signing up, if customer is not known to the IAP service, so what is the signing up process for?
For the customer, you mean? We can show that to you. No, I cannot show that on the sandbox. Basically, if they already have an Odoo.com account, so if they use Odoo SH or the cloud offer, it's the same account. It's not actually the same database, but we communicate between our services so that we can use the credit card they use to pay their subscription, for example, to charge them. So as I said before, the goal, sorry, I need to repeat the question first. The question was, how is the sign-up flow for the user of your service on the IAP platform? And as I was explaining, if it's a customer that we already know on Odoo.com, the sign-up flow will be really easy. Basically, they will get signed in nearly automatically into the IAP database, into the IAP platform front end. And if they have a credit card already registered with us, we can charge it without them having to input it again. So the goal, as I said, is to make this flow quite easy for the user. And once they're signed in, as I said, getting the I don't have it here anymore. Getting the having the pack paid is really easy. So here they have a buy button. Since this is the sandbox, if I click buy, it goes on. It goes through automatically because we don't want to do this here. But yeah, here they will have basically an e-commerce checkout page, and if they have credit cards registered with us, everything will be visible automatically, and they will click. And this is instantaneous. So if they buy credits, they have it immediately, because otherwise, as I said, we want this to be as frictionless as possible for them. That's how you get them to keep using it. So that's the flow.
In terms of the now, basically, what merchant account you will be registering for charging those services? I mean, is the IAP has a merchant account for those credit cards to charge those credit
What can you say that again?
You know, basically for any credit card workflow, basically before money can be charged to any credit card, you have to have a merchant account.
You have to what kind?
Merchant account, you know, for like banks normally for business applications, they like at least I'm talking about in Ireland, the banks issue a merchant account so that the money can be charged to any credit or any credit card can be charged for that account.
I'm sorry, I'm really not following the question.
I guess what you mean is like where we can claim the money. So it's like
okay.
It's a partner account.
Yeah. So no, what happens is that you have to, as a developer, you have to. So the question is, how do I get my money as a service provider? How do we pay you? And you have two possibilities.
It's like selling modules.
You can, yeah, by the way, if you want, this can be used in combination with the App Store. So if you want your service to be both something that customers pay as they use it and when they install it, this is possible. I mean, as a person, I would not advise it, because if I pay something up front, I'd rather not pay as a subscription or some, but depends on the use case, I guess. And to get paid by the IAP platform, it's the same as the App Store. So basically, you have the possibility to get paid, I think, every trimester or every time you reach a certain amount of money that we owe you. You have these two options. I'm not sure about the periodicity. It's either monthly or every 3 months. And the amount is also different, but we can basically you will give us your bank account information, and we will do a wire transfer, and I think we send you a purchase invoice, a vendor invoice, so that you get paid that way. Is there another question? All right. If there is none, then I think we can end here. Thank you very much.